Welcome to another edition of the Sim Racing Garage. I'm Barry Rowland. In this episode, we'll be reviewing the Formula CSX2 racing wheel from the guys at Cube Controls. This is their flagship F1 wheel from their Formula line of wheels, which include the Formula Sport, which I reviewed about a month ago, and the Formula Pro. Time to put it through the SRG's review process and see how it does. So, let's get to it. Now for our closer look segment on the Cube Controls Formula CSX2 wheel. Now this is their flagship F1 wheel, and it has a flagship price at $1,500 plus whatever shipping it is to get it to your door. Now I know a lot of you guys have already seen this wheel on their website, and yeah, if you were like me, you were kind of, well, thinking, man, it'd be nice to have that wheel to check out. So anyway, here it is, and yeah, it feels like a flagship F1 wheel when you get it out of the box. And the first thing we'll talk about is the grips, because that's the first thing you're going to be doing, obviously, is you take it out of the box and you go, okay, how's it feel? And these are typical F1 type grips, and they feel my hands just, well, not perfectly, but again, I can't think of many more things that are more subjective than a grip and how it feels in somebody's hand. It might feel great, perfect to somebody else, and not so perfect to others. But yeah, there's ways to fix that if you need to. But the grip is made of what they're calling elastomer instead of urethane, and it is injection molded. You can see the injection molded pieces right there left over. And they do have seams on them, and you can feel it, little ridge there. I don't know how well you can see that. But it is, rubber or elastomer, so it's not like it's real stiff or bites into your hand or anything. But I try to show all this stuff that I can to you guys, so you can make your own determination. Of course, I wear gloves. I never felt it. Even in bare hands when you're driving, you probably aren't going to feel it that much. You might even wear this down after a while with your hands or your gloves, just from use. Right, but again, just something I want to point out. The size of the grip officially from Cube Controls this way, this is the size that they're measuring, is 43 millimeters. All right. Now, I'm going to show you a shot here of the actual diameter of the top part of it, the thickest part I could get it to wrap around, and it's around 120 millimeters, right? So that's just something that you can use as far as if you think it'll fit your hand or not. I think it'll fit most hands. You won't have any problems with this wheel, and it is a Formula One type of shape, and that means it has that drop off, that deep drop off in the back that your fingers kind of fall into, right? And on the back also, there's this plastic piece. I'm not sure why this is here. In fact, it's got a nice grain to it, so it's not slippery or anything, but I'm not sure what that's for. I don't know if there's an access to something in there, or just an accent, for aesthetics. So when you're holding it and you're shifting and stuff, your other finger or glove will actually rub up against here. Of course, if you're shifting a lot, it might be because this finger, when you're reaching over to get your shifter, because you're like this and you reach, there's a lot of wear and tear on that area, so maybe that's what that's for, to keep your grips from wearing out in that area. Just thinking out loud here. And of course you can see how great this wheel looks as I'm turning it around here with this blue anodized aluminum parts, but we'll get to in a minute. Anything else we want to talk about as far as the grips go? Yeah, I think that's about it. It is stiff. It feels very, very stiff in hand, and actually when I was driving it, it felt stiff too. So they've really improved the design of this wheel over the last one was the Sport that I did a review of a little while back, just a few weeks back, I think, a month or so. And yeah, they've improved over their original F1 design. And what they did was they added some places where they could add more support to the grip part, between the grip and the main frame, from here to there, by extending the aluminum housing bits out on the back. And that gave them room to drill a hole that they could tap some threads in, and of course secure it with some screws. So we have a screw down here, and we have one up here, and we have another one right there in between our little scroll switch. So that's also mounted into the aluminum. It's threaded. Now on the back, you can see where they've done the extensions here to accommodate that. And of course, it's obvious up here. It's easy to see that one. We also have one down here. I don't know if the light's hitting it right, but there it is right there. And then we have another one over here on the back that's easy to see too. So on both sides doing this, it really did, I believe, fix any kind of flex that was in the older design. So it's good to see again that they're not they're listening to people's complaints about flex or whatever other issues might be found in a wheel once they send them out to them, and they're addressing it. So it's good to see that. Now, what else can we talk about? The grips we got, and let's talk about this carbon fiber plate that's on here. This is, I believe, 4 mil. Let's go ahead and check it. See what we got. And 390. Do I have that closed right? There we go. Yeah, so that's a 4 mil thick carbon fiber there. And while we're at it, let's let me flip it around here so I can get to it so you guys can see it. We will check out the thickness of our paddles. I believe they look 4 mil too. Let's see. Yeah. So everything's 4 mil as far as the carbon fiber goes. All the carbon fiber looks pretty good to me. I don't see any defects as far as the weave or anything. I got some sticky glue on here. And yeah, on the front plate, I can't find any defects either. It just all looks very nice, as you might expect. Again, I'll be saying at this price point, it better be. Right. So carbon fiber looks good, and we have a lot of buttons on here. But let's talk about the display real quick first. Now, this is an Ultimate Gamer Tech makes this display, and it's very large for a wheel. It's actually 4.3 inches all the way across here on the diagonals. So it's a big display. It's a pretty display too, and you'll see that once you see me driving it and we go through the software stuff and things like that. But it's a very pretty display. But it's a very powerful display also. Of course, you have your own application or software that runs this display. All these buttons are plugged into the circuit board that also runs this display. And I'm going to show you the functions that they're listing for the display in the shot here, so you guys can pause it and read all the functions that it can do. We're talking like, first off, the display itself is an LCD TFT, and it's 480 by 272 as far as the resolution, and it can do 21 LEDs. Now there's not 21 here, but there's extra LED spots that you can use for a total of 21. A total of 30 buttons can be put on here on their board, and 4 hats, which are these guys here, and we have 8 analog inputs that are running, all of them are running at 12-bit, so that's very nice. And of course that would be for clutches back here that we're using on this wheel. 5 rotaries and 6 encoders. Can do a lot, obviously. So a very powerful circuit board that these guys are putting out along with their display. Right, so the display itself is, again, something that some people who do VR are going to say, well, I don't need a display, and you probably don't. But yeah, guys who don't use VR, this display is a beautiful thing to have in your hands when you're actually driving the wheel. And of course, it makes it so you don't have to have a display separately mounted somewhere, which, by the way, you can get UGT's display just like this and put it in an enclosure and mount it anywhere you want. So that's also a plus. All right, so I like the UGT so far. Now the software, I'm going to show you that. It's not perfect. It does have a couple little glitches here and there, but for the most part it does fine. It does a great job. I mean, if you're changing the color of a font or something, it might not change right or something, but we'll see that once we get to the software. And that's something I kind of expect in these kind of software anyway. But for the main functions of it, it works perfectly. Right, so what else we want to talk about here? The button density we have on the front of this. All right, so we have 6 buttons, I believe, on this side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And by the way, they are lit buttons. And we have another 7 of them over here, right? And they do have a nice feel to them. Very solid, very solid, good spring tension here. They wiggle around a little bit, but that's typical of all buttons. They will move. And they do have decals on them, so decals can wear off, be advised. And that's also been a complaint about anybody that puts a decal on any button. Eventually, if you're using that button a lot, it might wear down for you. But we'll take a look at the solution for that in a minute. Right, so all these are lit, and we also have these toggles on the top here. And when they're in the up position, there is no LED light in there, but when you push them down, they turn red. And we have obviously one on each side. So that's kind of neat the way they turn on red. So then you'll know you've activated whatever it was that you've mapped to this button. What else do we want to look at? The hat switch. Okay, this one over here. Now this is kind of more like an analog switch, hat switch, because it kind of moves all the way around, but if in the actual control, if you look at it, it only goes up, down, and left and right. Now, if you notice when I'm moving this, it's not clicking, which at first I thought maybe something's wrong because all the hat switch I've used so far, or 7-way switches that on other wheels that I've used all had a click when you pushed it, but this one doesn't. But it does activate whatever you're doing. So yeah, I just kind of like a click to be there when I do that, but it doesn't affect the performance or operation whatsoever. Now, the turn here is very good, very firm, nice detents. They're close, which they should be for such a little rotary here, but they're very nice, definitive detents in here. You can definitely feel them without a problem. So yeah, I really can't complain about the detents in here. It just does a good job. And we also have, of course, a button press here. The knob itself, it's riding on top of here, has these little sharp edges. I mean, not sharp enough to cut you, but yeah, little sharp edges, so you get a very good grip on this knob, regardless which way you're rolling it. And of course, when you have gloves on, the material from the gloves will also catch that. But you can feel it obviously better with your finger bare. So you can still drive bare finger and get a good grip on everything when you get your sweaty hands on the wheel, right? All right, so let's talk about some of the encoders. We have this one here, and these are probably identical, I imagine. They look the same. They have the same setup. Let's see if you can, well, let's go this way with it. You can see that there's a kind of a raised metal support there, which is nice. It's not just the shaft coming out. It's got this like a housing around it to support it, which gives it a good firm feel when you're trying to push it sideways, and that's just a test to, you know, see if how sloppy this thing is. Now, of course, there has to be some movement in this, or you wouldn't be able to turn it, right? It has to have some lash. And yeah, they feel very good. The detents are close and definitive. You know, not exceptional. I'd like to maybe see a little bit more force on the detents. Of course, that's all subjective, but yeah, they certainly get the job done, and it's easy to just get one click when you want to go grab it. Yeah, not a problem for that. Now, we also have these selectors down here, right? Oh, forgot to mention, these are all aluminum knobs. Now, these don't have that sharp edge to them. They're kind of rounded off, I guess. They're not as sharp, but still easy to grip and not lose your grip. Now, these knobs here for the selectors, you can see that obviously they move a long ways to do their selection. And it's got that little fork in there, which is kind of cool. So you know right away, as soon as you look at your switch, you know what position it's in. Now, I think these are plastic, but I could be wrong. It might just be some kind of a plastic coat. You can see the texture on that. It almost looks like it's got a rubber coating on it, but it does have a set screw in it. So that would lead me to believe that this is actually a aluminum knob that is coated with some kind of a rubber coating, because it just feels different. Very grippy, by the way. So I don't think you'll ever have to worry about losing your grip on this. And we have two of them. And they feel pretty good. They do have a little bit of movement in them. Let me show you there. Well, let me grab it so I can not move them. It's a little bit of movement there. It'll rock sideways. But a big move like this, a knob that has these big moves, like a selector like that, I'm not surprised. It's rare that I come across one of these that is just super tight. But this actually has some movement in it. And again, I'm just here to show you this stuff. Again, it doesn't affect their functionality or what they do. It's just one of those things that I notice. And in all positions, I think, yeah, it's the same in all positions. So it doesn't get better or worse no matter what position it's in. It all feels about the same. And again, just look at the things I like to show you guys as far as the details go on a wheel that I'm looking at. Right. So now we have some more stuff to look at. There's so much on this wheel. And we have these scrollers, or this is actually not a scroller. This is our bite point set. And I used this in the F1 car, and it worked like a champ. And all this does, of course, is set the bite point for the initial clutch to let go, right? So we let that go, then the car starts rolling, and then we'll slowly let this one out to accelerate. So that's how we set it, and it worked like a champ. There's no tricks to it or anything, no setting different buttons. You just worked right out of the box. So I like that. I like that about this. Now we have two encoders up here, and they have the knobs on these actually have that texture to the edges, just like this one had, right? So it has a little sharpness feel to it. So it's easy to get your finger in there and just move it back and forth easily, right? Without slipping. And again, when we get sweaty hands when we're racing, this is a plus when you put your thumb over there. Of course, you have a glove on, then the material from the glove is going to catch it. And again, move it back and forth in a very solid way. And these, by the way, these are very tight. The shafts on these, I can't even move them, I don't think. They're moving a little bit, but again, you got to have some lash in there for it to actually work. And yeah, it just feels great. I really like these. And this is the same way down here, even though this is actually a potentiometer, like a little rotary potentiometer in here. This is an encoder switch, or rotary. And same way over here, when I'm actually using this one. Same thing, no slack or movement in that you would, that you would notice otherwise than being necessary to have. I can say this, I can get it out. Necessary to have to obviously be able to move it. And again, I really like that little sharpness they have on this. Again, not sharp enough to actually cause your skin any damage, but yeah, this is really going to be nice when you're actually racing and you get sweaty, or your gloves, you can even get sweaty too. Right, so they work fine, and of course, I've already used them, and I can vouch that they work just beautifully. Right, so now we have 2 encoders left, rotaries, and these are up here in the grips. I love these kind of encoders. They're in the grips rather. It gives us 2 more things that we can do on each side, and it's easy to get to. When you have this in hand, you got one here, we got one up here, and yeah, just easy to get to these in this upper group of buttons. Now I'll talk about that in a second too. So again, more functionality, easy to use, and this is where it comes into play also for VR. All right, yeah, you don't need this display in VR. You don't need the LEDs, right? You just don't need that stuff. But you can still use a wheel like this very well in VR because it lends itself well to that. And what I mean by that is when you have your VR hood on, you don't see where your buttons are, right? But you use your muscle memory to find your buttons and dials and what have you when you need to. Now, what's cool about these wheels is they have these raised areas on the button shrouds, right? You can see here we have an area that's raised up. It's thin down here, or lower down here rather, and taller up here. Same way on this one, taller up there, and even this one has a little bit of it on it, but it gets less as it goes. So they're not all the same. And this one is just a circle, right? And this one has a little bit of a raised area on that side. Right, so here's the idea behind this kind of thing. I can actually find my anchor point by muscle memory on this wheel by going over here and just feeling this one right here, because it's a big lip on there. So I know exactly where my thumb is when I'm over there. And based on that, I can easily figure out, well, okay, to get to the other button that I know that is mapped for whatever function I'm looking for, I can just go right to it this way, going to the right with my thumb, right? And once I come back to my anchor over here, and you can actually push very hard on this without ever hitting that button. So you don't have to worry about accidentally activating that button. You just kind of slide over and feel that. Now it is a bit of a reach. I do have to unwrap my hand a little bit to get to it, right? Like this. But if I'm going down a straight or something, usually I'm not doing anything to buttons when I'm in a turn, where I need to have both hands on it. So I can easily reach over and find that though, right? And press the button if I need to. Now I'll also go back to my anchor point, and now I can go down and know that second button's going to be right there because I can feel the lip on it, right? And then I know I got one more button underneath that. But then I can go back to my anchor anytime I need to, if I lose where I'm at, and relocate which button I'm after, right? This one or that one. Okay. Same thing going on up here. Here I can actually find my anchor on this top part because you can see it's also has the largest raised area on it of all these around it. Okay. So it's also bigger. So easy to find my anchor point up here. Then I know my scroll is right here, right? I don't have to look at anything. I know my toggle's over here right next to my higher, and right next to my toggle is going to be my other button that also has the raised area on it, right in there. So I know where that is, and I've got one more button that I can come down and get right here. So I can kind of sectionalize my functions here. While I'm under the hood, now I've got all this functionality, and I can go right to my, I'm closing my eyes now, I can go right to my anchor points and press the button I need, or I can go get whatever button I need from that anchor point and do the same thing over here. And once you memorize it from get your muscle memory involved here, it doesn't take you long to naturally go to where you need to go and then go to the scroll, or even go to the scroll because you know it's right there in this indentation, right? So you obviously everybody will figure out a different way. And you can do the same thing over here, right? So that's why I really like the way these different heights of raised shields are on the buttons, and the way that Cube Controls does that. It just lets you sectionalize the wheel, especially one with all these functions on it. Yeah, it's nice to be able to, find your way around the wheel and be able to easily adapt to where the locations are. And of course, when it comes to the center dials, well, that's something else. You're just gonna have to slide over, and you've only got two, so you can feel them, and then you got your two selectors underneath those. So again, not a hard wheel to map out in your memory, I think. So that's always a plus. All right, anything we want to talk about at the front? Boy, that was a lot, wasn't it, just for the front? It's got a lot going on in this wheel. All right, so let's go around to the back. We'll talk about the housing first here. Again, typical Cube controls. They do a fantastic job, I think, in my opinion anyway, of their housings. They add the little accents, like the little beveled parts here are chamfering all the way around. And of course, that just follows all the way around the wheel. And it's just a good looking enclosure. And it's powder coated. It's not real shiny. So it doesn't take fingerprints as easily as, let's say, we had a shiny high gloss finish on this. And of course, we do have plenty of logos on here in case you forgot what wheel we're using here, right? And of course, this is all high quality stuff, though. You know, when you have it in hand, you're looking at it. And I know a video really can't convey in the real life analog environment when you're actually touching things and you can feel it and see it in person. But yes, it's nicely done stuff. It's all very professionally done. So I really can't complain about it too much, even though, yeah, in case you ever forget which wheel you have in your hands, you know it's a Cube. All right, so let's talk about the back. Again, past the housing, we've got some more controls back here, of course. The main thing is going to be our shifters. We're going to use the heck out of these bad boys. And I like the way they've done these shifters. They used a combination of aluminum and carbon fiber. Aluminum where they needed to, like for the shifters sensors on this. Look at my table moving. And these are actually contactless shifter pieces in here. And if you look in here, I don't know how well you're going to see that because I can't do my pointer at the same time, but you can see the inside of here, that shifter, there's a white cylinder. There's just like a tube, a steel tube. Maybe it's a magnet, I'm not sure, but it's steel or magnet. But inside of there's a white piece in there. I wonder if I can show you better going this way. Let's see. All right, well, hopefully you guys can see that in there. And that's part of the sensor system that's picking up the distance when that magnet picks up away from it. Of course, this is just a one move type shift sensor, so it doesn't need to judge how far the magnet is away from anything. Just when the magnet gets to a certain distance and the magnetic field reaches a certain point that's been pre-programmed, and we know you made a shift. And they're not that loud, actually, which surprised me. I mean, it might sound loud on the video, but when you're actually driving and you got the sound of the car on, I could hear them, but I couldn't hear them like click, 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 like some of them that I've had. Right, so aluminum levers here with our 4mm carbon fiber paddles, and we have some nice adjustability in there. It was actually adjusted all the way out when I got it, and I brought it back in a little bit. Even with my small hand, I actually brought them back in a bit to make it more comfortable, or at least try to get it exactly where I wanted it. Now the clutches are all the way out, and I have little pinkies, so I'm glad it can go that far out, because that was about perfect for me when I was doing the clutches. And again, all anodized aluminum in here. On the side points we have carbon fiber, and you can see that we have a slot in here, right? Well, you can see that. So we can actually adjust the rake on the paddle too, not just this way, but we can slide it, pivot it in and out. And there's a little bit of slot in the back part, so you can actually make the whole thing come out a little bit if you want to. But mainly it's going to pivot. That's where the biggest range of movement is. And of course the other one's done the exact same way, right? Very nice. I've always liked the Cube control shifters. You know, it's a very positive click. You know, the travel's not as far as some that I've had, and it really, in the end of the day, I don't really think that matters so much. But yeah, these do a very good job. I never missed a shift, and they never missed a shift when I activated them. So you can't complain too much when that happens, right? I wonder if they have the Cube. Yeah, it's hard to see, but they've got the Cube logo on these shifters. I don't know how well the light's not going to be able to get to it very easily. But anyway, down in here, it says a little white Cube Controls logo. All right. So again, very nice units. And now we'll move on to the clutches themselves. And again, these are analog units, and they're very quiet. As you can see, I'm moving them, nothing's happening. And you can see pretty well here the sensor, the embedded sensors in this plastic or whatever is there that is measuring the distance of the clutch, right? Where that magnet is as far as the magnetic field. You got more magnetic field there, and it gets less as we move it away. And the sensor inside of here is telling the board that, and of course it's being translated to what position, analog position, that actual clutch is in. So we release that, and then it knows exactly where I am as far as the clutch, right? So yeah, works flawlessly. The same design, which is good. We wouldn't want to change that. It works so well as the shifters, as far as having an aluminum lever here and aluminum housing in there, but carbon here. Now, it is not adjustable. There's no adjustment here on the carbon part, but again, we can adjust it this way, which I didn't have to, because it's just about, like I said, I got little pinkies here, and it's just about perfect for me all the way out. But some of my bigger hands obviously would want to put a ship back in. What else do we talk about? The USB cord connector. All right. Now remember, the older ones they first came out with had them down the bottom here, and they were sticking out. And I think I made some statements about that and comments that I'd like to see something different, because it was just making the cord hang down too far. But now it's straight out the back. So yeah, no more issue with your USB cord actually sticking down and maybe getting in the way, or maybe not, depending on what your situation is. I like the way they do these connectors, because it has the cap on it. And some people say that they don't know what to do with the cap once it's off and the USB's connected to it. But if it's hanging in the way somewhere, you can actually take this out, this little piece here. Oh, you can see that. But you can actually compress this little arrow piece here, right there, and slide the whole thing out and reverse it and stick it the other way, so that, you know, the cap would actually be sticking up here somewhere. As long as it didn't interfere with any of your clutch or anything, it'd be fine. But again, it's nice to have options, and I think I did that to one of these Q wheels that I actually had. And again, it is plastic, it's not metal, but it still gets the job done, and of course it goes well with the rest of the scheme of things as far as aesthetically speaking. And then we have the dominant part here with this hub, all right? And I really like their hubs. For some reason, I like this style. Some people may not, but I just like the way it's got some kind of a style going on here, instead of just, you know, a flat hub with some holes in it. So yeah, they do pay attention to design over there at Cube, and you know, hats off to the guys for that. And we do have two patterns here. We've got the 50.8 PCD on the internal holes here, and we've got the 70 millimeter PCD on the outsides. So you can run whatever quick release you want to. As far as your adapter for your quick release system, I'm going to be running this guy. And this is 50.8, and this is an HRS. And yeah, I'm just going to put that on there like that and run it that way. Not only that, the 50.8, you can still see more of the cool blue stuff around it, right? Instead of covering it up with the 70. But then again, if you don't have a 50.8, 70 will work fine. Now we have alternating holes here, as far as some of them are not threaded, like these right here. There's no threads in here. But if you look at these guys over here, I'll drop the wheel. You can see they do have threads. Now, there we go. That's a good picture of it. So it's kind of alternating threads, no threads, threads, no threads, so forth, and so on. So you can actually put a bolt through here if you want to, and put a nut on the other side if that's the way you have to connect your particular quick release system, or you can just run through the screws. I ran screws. I've been running this obviously, and I've run screws through this and went through this one here. The thing about these HRSs, they have threads in them also. All right, so you see the threads tapped in there. So sometimes, though, that can be an issue, because you're running a thread through here and it doesn't come out in the right position to properly engage the threads in the next piece, and that causes an issue, and you have to do something different. But in this instance, I didn't have a problem with this, and it's kind of funny that I didn't, because I was sure I would have some kind of problem, but it went on with no problem. It just went all the way through this and that and cinched it down nice and tightly. So what else can we talk about here? We got this wire in here. Everybody asked, what's that wire for? And this is going to be their own, this is a USB pass-through, from what I've been told, that they're actually working on their own quick release system at Cube Controls. And they're going to have a USB pass-through for the quick release system. I'm not sure how that's going to work or come together, but anyway, there it is. That's what it's for. And since we're not using it right now, we'll just tuck it away and leave it alone. And we can see some of that board back there too, their circuit board. Again, I haven't decided whether or not I'm going to tear into this and do the look inside, but we might. We just might. I don't know. And another thing I want to talk about is what comes with the wheel. I guess we talked about everything I can here. Yeah, I think you guys get the idea. And oh, by the way, let's talk about the weight. I meant to mention that. This is actually 2 pounds, 10.5 ounces. And for everybody else in the world, that comes out to 1,200 grams or 1.2 kilo. And they advertise this at 1,180 grams. And I got 1,200 grams on my weight, and you can see the weight here. And yeah, so They're real close. I'm surprised they were that close, actually, only 20 grams off. So there you go. That's how much this thing weighs. And the complete diameter across this is actually 282 millimeters. And that's exactly the same size they have on their website. And I measured it from the the end part here to the end part over here with my trusty machinist ruler, and it certainly comes out to 282. So I think that's a decent grip size for Formula One cars, and can also translate over to GT cars in like the IMSA or the WEC series cars or the Le Mans cars, things like that. So you can actually drive with this wheel, obviously, other than Formula One type wheels. In fact, I think I got some driving of me doing the Ferrari 488 GT3. Right. So again, let's talk about what it comes with. Comes with a nice USB cable, as you might imagine, and it has the male connector right there that will go into the female receiving end over there. And again, it has this nice little not knob, but rather a collar here that screws on. And you can see it's got these little O-rings in these things, which is kind of cool. So in case you spill your beer on it or something, it won't get down in your controller. Now it is plastic, but I've never had a problem with this plastic as far as stripping out the threads or it breaking or anything as far as I've used one of these. And of course we have the USB on the other side. Now there is no ferrite sink in this cable, which that's just one of my pet peeves. Is I like to see ferrite cores in all cables. But I didn't have any problem using the wheel. It's just one of those things that every cable I buy, I try to make sure it has a ferrite core in it. All right. So what else do we get? We also get this bad boy. All right. Now this is the power adapter. You need more power to power this wheel, all right, than you get in a regular USB hub. And I can see that, I can't stand fingerprints on my LEDs. Okay, that's better. And I have a powered hub that puts out like 5 amps. And I have other things plugged into it, though. And I try to test this to see, well, I don't need this adapter that's in the power adapter. I'll just plug it into my powered hub. And that didn't work. I've got other things running on it. Maybe all by itself it would work. But yeah, I can't do that either because I need the other ones. So yeah, you've got to use the adapter, this power supply they send you. And this is one of the typical adapter. It goes 120, 200. Doesn't matter if you're in Europe or in the US or North America, you can use this. And if you'll notice, it doesn't have the North American plugs on it. So when I first saw that, I said, oh, okay, I'm going to have to do something. So I'm just using this simple adapter. Just slides on the top like that. And then I can use it. See, no problem. And we have the 5mm, the typical 5.5mm DC connector here. And this cable is about 1 meter long or so, in that neighborhood. And I'm hoping that's going to be long enough, but we'll see. And I'll give you a close-up here of this. You can see the output on this. I believe that's 2,000 milliamps, 5 volt. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, 2,000 milliamps. So that's 2 amps, right? So it does require a lot of power. That's why my hub wouldn't power it. And when you do power it up, and we'll see that, this actually lights up the Cube logo here and it turns blue. So that's pretty cool. And it is a USB 3.0 plug. You can see the blue in there on both sides, right? But yeah, this dongle is very close to the powered piece inside of here. So, ooh, easy wheel. Don't want to hurt it. So yeah, it worked out fine when I was using it. I did have to use an extension, but I'll talk about that later in the mounting segment. And what else? Yeah, an important thing we get. Got it hiding under here. Remember I was talking about the buttons and the stickers on the buttons and how they can wear out and, yeah, go bad on you, and then you gotta figure out what you want to do as far as putting another sticker on there. Well, they got you covered pretty much here, I think. There's a lot of stickers on here. And these are for the dials. I mean, they're just a ton of stickers. It's nice that they go the extra mile and do that. And we have stickers over here. It looks like they've actually taken the stickers off of here. Look at that. See that? So I'm missing stickers there that went onto this wheel right here. I just noticed that. And hopefully they'll have, duplicates of what you'll need on that. But anyway, there they are. And they seem like to be decent quality stickers. Of course, this is something that, how do you put a label of decent quality on this when, you just have to wait and see in real life how well they wear. But there's a lot of different stickers that we can put in different places. So yeah, again, a credit to Cube for putting this decal sheet in here, not only for their flagship wheel. the CSX2, but they also do it for their sport wheel. I also had one of these for the sport wheel. Right. Anything else we get? I think that's it. So there's the closer look, and either we're going to get to the mounting and some software visions or software segments. And again, I haven't decided whether I'm going to do an actual look inside of this yet. Depending, I might play with it a little bit and see how easily it comes apart and then make a decision. So I decided to go ahead and just break the covers apart, and it wasn't really that hard, so I went ahead and did it. But I wasn't sure if I wanted to take this apart. But when you see how this is built, the display is the UGT display, but typical to their style, the guys at Cube Controls have actually made their own proprietary circuit board that is servicing that display. And you can see the ribbon cable hanging down from that display. Now, I didn't want to unplug any of these plugs because they're very, very tight. And again, I don't like doing something like this unless I absolutely have to, because it needs a repair or something. But you can see it's the usual blue circuit board in there. Again, very nicely done, very professional looking. And yeah, there's not really much else to see here, so really hardly worth breaking it open, huh? But it's easy enough to put this back together and not disturb anything, and that's why I went ahead and did that. I'll give you a look this way too. All right. And I did have to go underneath a couple of decals to get to a couple of bolts here. You can see them kind of bending up to get to some bolts to release it. But other than that, yeah, kind of busy looking in there, isn't it? A lot of connections going on. And of course, that's no surprise considering how many buttons and functions this wheel actually has. So we'll go ahead and put this back together and then start getting it ready to put on the wheelbase that we're going to be mounting it to. Now I'm going to take a kind of a high level look at the software. It's capable of doing a lot of things, and you could spend a lot of time playing with this, but I'm just going to do, again, kind of a high level brief of showing you what it does. So when you first open it, the Ultimate Game Tech Manager, this is what you see. Now this needs to be open to control the wheel and the display. So you have to have this running for it to operate properly when you're using a game. Now you can see it says iRacing in here. Well, that's the only game I have on this laptop that I'm actually doing the OBS recording on. And you can see up here the firmware. It'll tell you what firmware version you have, whether it's current or not. Now, when you first start up your wheel, you may get a red flag up here saying update because it knows your firmware needs an update. And I had that, so I went ahead and updated the firmware, and I actually updated the software too. So now I am current on both of these. Now, you want to do that, obviously, because you want the latest and greatest to fix any bugs or issues that the display system may be having or the software may be having. So anyway, down here on the bottom, you can see that there is a layout selection available, and I have a bunch of layouts in here. All those are pages that I can scroll through on this display while I'm using the wheel. Very cool that you can do this. And layout one, I'm just going to go with the default layout one, and you can actually hit this start test data, and we'll see the wheel. So it'll start cycling through this green, the default one, and there it is, showing you everything that's going on with the flags, the RPM indicators, and of course the display itself, or the page that we're on now, right? Now you can see there are other screens in here, and you can actually come down and pick one. I'll pick number 5. Let's see what that one is. There we go. So that's a different layout, and yeah. So you can pick whichever you want just to do a quick check and make sure that, this is what you want to be on there. Now, of course, we can arrange where these pages are located as far as the order that we're scrolling through them in, but we'll look at that in a second. Right. So as that is running, I'm going to go over here and start looking at what we can do. And global options, we have global mappings and global settings. We're going to go to the mappings first so I can demonstrate that. And this is how we map buttons on this wheel to control what we can control, the options available to us in the software. So let me go ahead and put this out of the way. Make sure I get my, whoops, that's definitely not what I want to do. All right, there we go. Windows, you gotta love it. Okay, so right now I'm just doing a couple of them. I'm going page up and page down. And I'm using my buttons here. I have a plus button and I have a minus button. So if I want to hit the plus button, I can actually scroll through the different screens. Those are just two of the same screens. So you can see that different screens are available to me. Now, I can also go the other way by hitting the minus button. Like that. Okay, and that's a custom screen I have, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. So let's say I don't want to use that. I want to change it to using my scroll over there on the, Well, either one doesn't really matter. I wish you use the one closer to me so I can keep my hands out of your vision or the viewable area where the wheel is. So all you do is come down here and click on this, and then it will say select your input. Now I want to go scroll right. I'll go to the right. There we go. I think I picked it up. And then we'll go down to the page down, and I'll scroll left for that. See if I can pick it up. Okay, I think that should have worked. Now you have to save this for these things to work. So I'm going to save it. Now let's see what happens when I hit the scroll. There we go. So I can actually scroll through the different screens. Well, wait a minute. There we go. So it's going that way. So anyway, it's just a way to map the different buttons on here to do what you want to do as far as scrolling through your different pages. Very cool that you can do that, and you can have a lot of pages to scroll through actually. So anyway, let's go back to let me go back to the original default one. There we go. And so that's how we set up for the mappings. But we spend most of your time in here in the settings. And we'll pull the settings screen up here. Again, let me lift us up here so I got plenty of room to show you the wheel is doing its thing. Now, first thing you'll see over here is a custom shift light values. And we can adjust each one of these LEDs to a certain brightness, and we can change the shift points on them also, right? So you can see right now it has a default setup for the shift points. And actually it worked pretty well when I was in the Williams. I can't remember which F1 car I was in, but you'll see that in the driving segment. It matched it pretty well, so I didn't have to really change it. Now, we also have some things that we can do down here. Shift light type. We can do single. We can do green, red, blue, side to center, center to side. You can do whatever you want to. Let's do side to center. All right. So again, you notice I just did that, but nothing's happening. You have to come over here and save this for these settings to take effect. Now it should do. There we go. So now we're coming from the sides and going to the center for the shift point. All right. Now let's say I want to leave that in that configuration, but I want to change. Let's go further down here. I want to change what they do as far as the speed of the optimal shift point. Right now, you'll notice these blue LEDs on the bottom of my flags down here are blinking at the shift point. Let's say I wanted to change that, and I want to go either all RPMs, the highest. Let's say we got highest, all blue flags, which is doing now. High 5 blue flags blink, all RPM blue flags blink. So let's just do all RPMs blink. So let me click on that one. Now again, I have to save it for that to take effect. And let's see, let me show them what's not taking effect. There we go. Okay, now there we go. Now when we hit the optimal shift point, we should get all LEDs blinking. If we can get some LEDs, thank you. There we go. So now you see they're all blinking, which is, again, it depends on what you want. I ran it with the blue flags blinking because that's just the way I wanted to do it. And so we'll go back to that. And let's see. Blue flags blink. So now once I do that, I'll go over here and save. And there we go. Now the blue flags should be blinking when we get to our shift point. So let's see if we can get some shift points here. Oh, we're going down gears now. Here we go. So my blue flags, you can see they're blinking again. Right. So, and we can go down here and adjust the overall brightness of our screen by sliding this back and forth. If, to adjust for your ambient temperature, you can actually map a scroll or some buttons to that if you want to adjust that brightness. And we have a minimum equals 1 and a max equals 16 here for LCD brightness. So this adjusts the minimum you can adjust as far as if you were adjusting it on a button or a scroll, then yeah, this would be the minimum it would go down. So if you went all the way too far, on a quick adjustment, and yeah, that's as dark as it'll go. So this just sets the minimums. I kind of like mine bright, so I always had this up to the top, brightness, and I would adjust here for that to make it bright or not bright. We can also, LED brightness range, we can change that, and from the green, red, blue, and yellow, and again, it's the same kind of deal we have set up down here. We can do the minimum, it'll go down as far as darkness, and you see all these are set to minimum 1, and if I put like minimum, yeah, it doesn't really. Let me try this. Let me put them all. Well, let's just do red and green and blue. That's all we're seeing now anyway. And we'll just put those guys up top. And you can see it kind of brought those back down. So I'm not sure what that's going to do. I thought it might leave them on, but it doesn't seem to be doing that. So anyway. But yes, you can adjust the LED brightness, put this back on minimums of 1, and then of course if we change it up here, the greens actually turn down pretty much here. You can see the reds down too. And yeah, okay, now they're all down to nothing, it looks like. Let's go ahead and, oh, there we go. There, you can see I just did the greens are nice and bright again. And I can go bring the reds back up, and I can go down here and bring my blues back up to where they're bright. There we go. So anyway, just something to play with here. Last thing I want to go over with is the actual layouts to be used in the setting and available layouts. Now currently I have 10 layouts. Yeah, 10 layouts. There's my custom one here. I'll click on that. And you can see it's got the numbers on it. And this was just a simple thing that I made. And we'll go over that real quick. And saved it. So then it became available as a layout that I can put up on here. Right? So I can put all the layouts I want apparently up here. It doesn't tell me I have a limit or anything. So yeah, my layout, you just drag and drop it. Let's say I didn't want this layout to be here anymore. You just click on it, drag it over here, and it's gone, right? It's not gone yet because I've saved it, but once I save it, you can see it changed over there on the wheel. So pretty cool. And let's go ahead and get to our, close this. Yeah, let me just close that. And we'll go to the layout generator. And this is where we can actually play around with our layouts. And this is going to cover my wheel up a little bit. So I'm going to try to slide it over here. All right, well, I'm going to go to layout 10, which is my custom layout to play with that one, not mess with the other ones. And this is a drag and drop window here that you can actually drag what you want. Now, we've got different categories. We've got car info, we've got fuel, delta times, lap times, just a lot of categories. Drivers, we can say first, second, or third place drivers. We want to monitor them and what they're doing. And let's say I wanted to go driver 1. All right, so now this gives me the option. I can look at his position, what his name is, his car name, which lap he's on, his sector, which sector times he's doing, and any other information that might be available from the game's telemetry stream. So very cool that you can do that. So let's say I want to say, okay, I want to know what driver 1's position is. Or no, let's just do his lap time. So I can actually click on this, drag it up here, let go of it, and you can see that'll tell me his lap times, right? But it's kind of small, so I'm going to go over here while I still have it highlighted, and I'm going to raise that a bit as time. There we go. That's pretty good. And I'll put it up here. So I know what my rival's time is all the time. Now, right now it's in blue. If I click in a hollow space here, you'll see it's a blue, right? But I can actually click on this, highlight it again, and go in. Let me go ahead and put this down a little bit. Let's say I want it to be that color, all right? So let me click on that. And it stayed blue. Why did it stay blue? It should not be blue now. Let's try another color. Let's try red. Highlight it. Of course, this might be a default color that I can't change, maybe? Oh, no, it just changed the pink there. Okay. Hang on. Let me go over here. Okay, so now it changed to the purple. So if I changed it to yellow, let me highlight it again. Not sure. If I clicked yellow, why didn't it stay yellow? I think there might be like a delay, but this is typical when you're using these pieces of software like this. I think that when you pick something, it doesn't do it right away. And sometimes you have to do it twice or 3 times. Go yellow, and it's still staying pink. Well, anyway, it's showing yellow here. I got a feeling if I save this layout, and now let's go see what the layout's doing. Well, you guys get the idea here on the layout. Before I do that, before I leave this. And here we have a create new layout, so you can actually create a blank one if you want, or you can clone the existing layout and then make changes to it, which you might want to do on the existing layouts they already have. And of course, then you want to save the layout, right? And you can stop and start the test data anytime you want to. And let's start it again, and there it is. Okay, that was layout 1. Let me go back to layout 10. Yeah, now it's back to blue. So yeah, not sure why it's doing that. The color change. The other color changes you can see work pretty well. I did a red here, green. And this is white, supposedly white. It looks kind of yellowish. And yeah, so we'll have to play with that and see what happens. It might, by the time we close this out, it might actually do what we have on there. In fact, I'm going to highlight it one more time. It went back to blue. I'm going to say I want this to be green. And I'm going to save it. It went back to blue there. All right, so let's go ahead and close this down. Again, you can change whatever you want here. And yeah, so let's go to our layouts now, and I'm going to pick layout 10 again and start the taste data. Yeah, it's still blue. Oh, it went to 1. All right, so again, there it is. There's my custom one again. It's staying on blue though. So that change did not take for whatever reasons, but like I said before, you can see the other changes here have worked. So I'm not sure what that is. Maybe start and start it again and try it again. Anyway, which is not, like I said, not unusual for these kind of applications that, you know, you might have something that's not working perfectly right. Again, yeah, it's just overall though, it's a very powerful application. You can do a lot of things here. And yeah, I kind of like this. And I think it's kind of a meeting expectations. You spend this much money on a wheel, you want something like this to be able to control the wheel and what you're getting out of it. So anyway, there we have the overview and kind of a high level. I didn't go into too much detail, but yeah, an overview of what's available as far as this Ultimate Game Tech display is concerned, and of course this application. Remember, this application does have to run in the background. Just minimize it, and yeah, everything will still work. You'll still come over here and I can still scroll through screens and do whatever I want to as far as the inputs I've already put on there. Right. I've installed the quick release on the back of the wheel. And again, we're using the small 50.8 millimeter pattern for our HRS connection that we'll be using on our wheelbase. Have our USB cable installed. Everything looks good there. Now, remember, we have to, if you remember the closer look, we've got a special cable we have to use to run this. And it's a very thick shielded one. Again, if you saw that in a closer look. And it has the dongle for the power. So we have to have power to this. Regular, even my hub, I actually checked this. Even my powered hub that is a 7 amp powered hub for USB wasn't powerful enough to run the wheel correctly. I still had to put this in, right? So I still have to use this power supply that they give us. Now, only problem with that is my stuff is a little bit further away from where the wheel is going to be mounted than most, I would imagine, because of the way the rig that I have set up. And this cable is about 1 meter long. All right, so that's too short. I'd like to see them make this maybe another meter long, because even if you just have a regular setup on your rig and you want to run this wheel, you know, you're going to have to plug it into a power strip or either the wall or something like that. And 1 meter is just not going to get it, because this needs to plug into the USB, obviously, on the back of the wheel. And the dongle is so close to where that plug-in point is, it's just, and it has to follow it wherever this goes, right? Wherever you're putting it, this wire is going to have to, this cable rather, is going to have to be very close to where this plug-in point is. And it has to be pretty close to the wheel because we have this coil cable. And yeah, you still want some room for this to flex while you're turning the wheel. Anyway, once you get it set up, your situation may differ, but like I said, it'd be nice if we had another meter on this power supply. But I have a solution, because I run into these issues a lot when I'm doing reviews. I have a few of these laying around, and this is actually a 2 meter long extension for this 5-volt DC plug, right? And it's the right size. So then we'll just take the plug from this power supply and I'll plug it in here like that, and then we'll take this plug and plug it over here like that. Now I've got, let's go ahead and let this hang down. I've got all this room here to be able to run this where I need it to be, to not overstretch my cable when I'm using it. I mean, that's a lot of room, right? And of course, it's actually longer than the actual USB cable on this, which is plenty long, by the way. I don't have any problem with that. But yeah, it'd be nice if we had another meter at least on this power supply. All right, so enough of that said. Now what we'll do is go ahead and mount it to the Bodner system that I'm running for this review, and yeah, mount it up and see what it looks like. So now we have the wheel actually mounted to our steering system, and you can see the HRS connection back there connected to the 54G Kollmorgen. That is part of our Bodner SS2 steering. And I'm probably going to loop this coil back around that hub. It's kind of hanging a little bit low here, so I might just do that, rerun it through the hole here. And you can see we have our Cube Controls powered connector right there. Of course, the light's on, which means it's powered. And we'll kind of slide around the back here and show you the DC converter, or the extension. You can see it's plugged in right there. And I have to go all the way down to a power strip that's down back in there. You can see it maybe a little bit of the light on it. But yeah, I needed to do that with the extension. Some of you may not need that, but again, like I said in the review, I wish that they had something a little bit longer, or at least offered an extension adapter like this with the kit. Right, we'll come back around here, and you can see I'm running a test loop here just to test a few things before I actually get in and drive. And we do have it set up like we saw in the software bit so that the screens can change, and I have different ones for timing set up for what I'll be driving and some other dashes. So in case I want to use a different dash here for whatever I'm driving, like a Ferrari 488 or something like that. Right, so yeah. And one of my favorite is the timing of the other drivers that are in the session with me, so I can see what's going on with them and just see how badly I'm doing. Right, so yeah, we'll take another look over here on this side. And that's about it. All we have to do now is get in and do the fun part, drive. So here we are in iRacing at Spa in the McLaren MP4-30 F1 car. Thought this was a fitting setup to use to test this wheel out, seeing as how it is F1 centric. And of course, the first thing you notice when you are driving this wheel is the gorgeous 4.3-inch TFT screen that is on this wheel. It is just a sight to behold when you're driving it, even though you're supposed to be paying attention to the road, of course. But yeah, there's a lot of things that you can pack into these screens, and I'll show you me paging through them, and again, another example of how compact it can be. And you can actually set screens up for all your timing in one screen, and maybe all your adjustments that you want to be making in another screen, and assign the buttons to make those adjustments. And then of course your regular screens for RPM, DRS, KERS, and things like that. But yeah, very versatile screen, very beautiful screen, and the software does a great job with it, with a minor exception. And you guys probably, if you saw that if you watched the application review part of this review, then you would have seen that I had trouble changing one of the colors and making it stick when I was trying to change color with the elements. But other than that, it worked flawlessly. The grips are very good on this wheel, with the caveat that I'll probably end up wrapping some tape around the bottom part to just fill up the palm of my hand a little bit more as I'm pushing on the wheel when I turn. It would make it a little bit more comfortable, but I think overall the grip's going to fit most people. And the shifters are a treat to use, as always with the Cube shifters. They're just one of those top flight magnetic shifters that there's several that I do like, but yeah, the Cube is among them. I'm just going to do a quick example here of me. I've assigned the page buttons here so I can page through my screens on the wheel. And again, just a demonstration to show the different things that are available. And you can put a lot of different pages in here. Again, back to the shifters, very crisp, but very quiet too. I was surprised at how quiet these shifters are. And they're not real hard to pull like some of my other shifters I have. They're kind of in the middle between low and high. And I guess that's why they're a little bit quieter. But yeah, they're doing a good job here, no problems. The clutches, I'm going to do a launch here. So I'm not spinning my wheels, which is not an easy task to do in this MP4 because it has so much torque to the rear wheels. And yeah, I got a good launch off here. Easy to dial this in just by turning the dial, that red dial potentiometer one on the bottom left there. And you know, no hoops to jump through here, no buttons to press before you can do it. Just turn it and go, which is very nice. Now I decided to go ahead and use this over in a Ferrari 488 GT3 in a GT type of car, just to see how it worked. And as you might imagine, it works just fine. At 282 millimeters, it's a fine size also, I think, for the GTs and the Le Mans cars and things like that, the prototypes. It'll fit in there just fine also. So it's a pretty versatile wheel, I think. And again, you can use any wheel for any car if you want to, but this kind of fits things a little better. Plus, in the Ferrari, you can construct your own screens, which I didn't do actually here. I was just using it. And, put on those screens whatever you want to do while you're in your Ferrari or another GT car or the Le Mans cars. You can always put different things in there that you want to use. Very versatile wheel, I guess, at the end of the day, is what you have to say about this wheel. And there's plenty of inputs. I don't think you could ever want for more inputs. In fact, I don't think I would ever use all these inputs, but it's nice to know they're there if you need them for a particular car or you just want to use them for whatever reason. So yeah, as you might imagine, I don't have a lot of bad things to say about this wheel. It is expensive. $1,500 is not cheap, but yeah, you also have to realize that you can spend a lot more on an F1 wheel than $1,500 these days. But yeah, I think this one fills the niche well. I think if you spend $1,500 on this wheel and you get it in hand, the quality is good. You would feel like you got a decent wheel. And I think this is the best wheel that Cube has ever made. As far as the other wheels that I've gotten, it just has that quality feel to it. And yeah, if it's something that you're looking for, an F1 wheel with all the bells and whistles, then yeah, I would give this one a close look for sure. Right, so we'll just go ahead and get on to the final thoughts. Final thoughts on the Formula CSX2 wheel from the guys at Cube Controls. Now, this is Cube Controls' flagship Formula One wheel from their Formula One wheel line, which includes the Formula Sport, which I have already reviewed a while back, and of course the Formula Pro. This CSX2 is a featured-packed F1 style wheel. I think you can do just about anything you would want to with all the available inputs here. The lighted buttons have a good spring tension and a satisfying click when you press them. The addition of different sized button shields with raised sections in them actually allows you to easily navigate between them once you mentally map your anchor points. Now, this is a plus if you are a VR driver. Easy to find your way around all the controls using the different sized button shields as a guide. The 7-way hat joystick is a great feature and worked as designed. I only wish that there was more than one of them, but I always say that on every wheel. Now, the knob on this 7-way has a nice definitive edge all the way around it. It's almost sharp, not sharp enough to cut you or anything, giving you a good non-slip surface to grip, which is also a feature on the side and grip rotary switches. Speaking of which, they feel like they are very good units and have very little lash on the shafts with good feedback from the detents in them. No problem feeling how many clicks you have turned them once you do it. The front rotaries also have aluminum knobs, but they have this smooth edge on them, so they're not sharp like the other ones. And they also work very well with only enough lash to let them turn and good detents in them also. The selector switches do have a bit more lash or movement in their shafts than the encoders do, but I really didn't have any issues when I was using them. The UGT display that Cube is using here is a treat to look at. All 4.3 inches of it. The UGT app that controls the display and wheel function is easy to use and allows you to do a lot of customization to your dashes. I did have an issue with changing the color of one of my elements that I actually added to one of my dashes, but really, other than that, it worked quite well. The Cube Control shifter are made up of the usual high standard I'm used to when reviewing their wheels. They have a good range of adjustment and really are just fun to use. And they have a nice tactile click when you use them. Using Hall Effect solution on them should give them very long life cycles. The dual clutches did a great job of allowing me to dial in a launch point, and no special hoops to jump through to get that to happen. You just turn the bite point wheel to adjust where you'd like to get the bite at, and then off you go. I like the Cube has added reinforcement points where the 4mm thick carbon plate meets the grips. This has certainly made a noticeable improvement in the overall stiffness of the wheel compared to their old wheel that I reviewed last year sometime. Now, this is by no means an inexpensive wheel. At $1,500 plus shipping, not something that everyone is going to want. But it is a feature-packed F1 style wheel that has a solid build quality to it. And believe it or not, you can spend a lot more than this on a function-rich F1 wheel in today's market. So, I think that you are looking this type of wheel, an F1 wheel, then yeah, the CX2 should be on your short list of ones to consider. I'm Barry Rowland. Thanks again for watching the Sim Racing Garage channel. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And if you would like to help support what I do here at the SRG, visit my website at simracinggarage.com.